Hello and welcome back to my channel. I am Dr. Whitney Kosters, professor of English, and I am so glad that you are here with me today because if you enjoy free, easy analyses of classic literature that you are likely to come across in school or in life, then please hit the subscribe button because that's what we do here. In today's lecture, we are going to talk about Roald Dahl's Lamb to the Slaughter. This is a fantastic story about gender roles, infidelity, murder, manipulation, and assumptions. It's a good one. Now, this story was published in 1953, a time when gender roles were very seriously observed and socially enforced. In many ways, our main character, Mary Maloney, is an ideal or a model woman of her time, in that she is very focused on her duties, caring for the house and her husband, and she clearly defers to and depends on him. In fact, Mary's whole world seems to revolve around Patrick, her husband. As the time grows nearer to when he will be home from work, we're told that Mary looks at the clock without anxiety, indicating to us that she looks repeatedly at the clock, not out of fear or nervousness, but in great anticipation of seeing him. Basically, Mary is June Cleaver, just British. And she is 6 months pregnant, so she will be fulfilling her expected maternal role soon. She's also described in stereotypically feminine ways, in that her mouth is soft and her eyes are placid. And like any good devoted wife, she has everything ready for her husband for when he returns home from work to ensure his comfort and happiness. In fact, the first line of the story is, "The room was warm and clean, the curtains drawn, the 2 table lamps alight, hers and the one by the empty chair opposite. On the sideboard behind her, 2 tall glasses, soda water, whiskey, fresh ice cubes in the thermos bucket." And as everything sits ready for the husband's arrival, Mary sits peacefully sewing. The Maloney home is lovely and cozy. It's clearly set up for the couple's comfort, peace, intimacy, and marital bliss. The scene is picture perfect and everything is just as it should be, routines and all. Patrick, who's always punctual, arrives home right on schedule. And Mary has not prepared dinner this evening because it's Thursday, the one evening of the week that they eat out. The minute that Patrick walks in the door, Mary greets him, hangs his coat, and makes him a drink. And then, even though she's been alone all day and is so happy to see him, she sits quietly knowing that Patrick doesn't like to talk much until he's finished his first drink. Now, this woman isn't just obedient, doting, and subservient to her husband. She really, really loves him. We're told that she loved to luxuriate in the presence of him and to feel almost as a sunbather feels the sun, that warm male glow that came out of him to her when they were alone together. She loved him for the way he sat loosely in a chair, for the way he came in a door, or moved slowly across the room with long strides. There's almost a sense of awe or worship on Mary's part here, and this may be why Mary desperately seems to want to alleviate whatever seems to be bothering Patrick this evening. She offers to get him his slippers, a snack, another drink, and make dinner instead of going out. All in all, Mary is the perfect wife whose life revolves around her husband. But amidst the routine, tonight is different. Patrick tells Mary he's leaving her, and it takes all but 4 to 5 minutes to discard her. Now remember the time period in which this is happening. Generally speaking, women were made to depend on men in a variety of ways. And Mary is not just emotionally and financially dependent on Patrick. I think it's safe to argue that her entire identity really is based on being his wife and homemaker. So this is especially devastating for her. It's noteworthy that the narrator does not share the actual dialogue of the conversation with us. He just says, "And Patrick told her." I think we are not given any details because the act of leaving this pregnant, husband-worshiping, dutiful wife is literally unspeakable. And to add insult to injury, Patrick is totally stoic about the whole thing, and he's unconcerned about Mary's emotional well-being. In fact, it's as though he's telling her some trite gossip or something. He selfishly ends the conversation with, "There needn't really be any fuss. I hope not anyway. It wouldn't be good for my job." This guy really is a total jerk. Now, Mary is in such shock that she starts to delude herself. The narrator tells us that initially she doesn't believe it, or maybe she just imagined all of it, or maybe if she pretends like she wasn't listening, then it never happened. So how does Mary respond to this life-shattering news? She says, "I'll get supper." Now, as the reader, I have to tell you that I feel utterly sorry for this woman, but at the same time, I'm very, very frustrated with her. I want her to defend herself. I want her to yell at him, shame him for being so cruel. I don't want her to continue serving him. But it's almost as though this is all Mary has ever done, is perform her domestic and wifely duties. And so it's really all she knows to do at this point. And this makes sense because the narrator tells us that everything was just automatic at this point. She just, kind of robotically goes downstairs to retrieve dinner. And she grabs the first thing that she touches in the freezer, which is this leg of lamb, this frozen leg of lamb. And she heads back upstairs to cook it. And she's made to feel stupid and insulted for doing this. "For God's sake," Patrick says, hearing her, but not turning around. "Don't make supper for me. I'm going out." This guy really is quite heartless. He's just told her that he's leaving her and then doesn't even give her the respect to turn around and look at her. All she gets is him scoffing at her for trying to serve him. He doesn't want her dinner. He doesn't want to be around her. He's going out, which suggests that maybe he has another woman on the side. And it's this that sets Mary off. Still in her daze, in her robotic state, she very calmly and without pause walks up to him and swings the frozen lamb leg as hard as she can right into the back of his head. And as he falls to the floor, she very calmly says, "All right, so I've killed him." And suddenly, Mary is no longer in shock, and we're told that her mind becomes very clear, which is interesting. What do you make of the fact that she's totally clear-headed in the aftermath of this murder? We're told that she'd suffer the death penalty for the crime, but that she really didn't care because what does it matter now? And such a thought really emphasizes just how much Mary's life revolved around Patrick and their marriage. But Mary is rather concerned about the fate of her unborn baby. So her maternal instincts motivate her to get away with murder. She shoves the leg of lamb into the oven, tidies herself up, and practices a performance that she'll give at the local grocery store when she'll buy sides for the dinner and thus establish an alibi. At the grocery store, Mary is as wifely and domestic as possible, discussing with the grocer the leg of lamb in the oven and what types of sides would best go with it to serve to Patrick. And she does something peculiar on her way home. She make-believes that all is normal and right, that it's just a regular Thursday walking home from the grocery store, and that nothing unexpected should be awaiting her at home. If she pretends nothing is wrong, then her reaction upon seeing Patrick's lifeless body will be genuine shock. Really, Mary is not just performing for the grocer or for the police, she's also performing for herself. And when she returns home, she calls out to Patrick and then authentically cries over his body upon seeing him. And it's at this point that she calls the police. Detectives, policemen, a doctor, and a police photographer, all male, arrive at the house. Mary explains that she went to the grocery store and came home and found Patrick lying on the floor. She sinks into a chair, she sobs, and she answers their questions. Now, I think she is genuinely saddened over Patrick's death, but I don't think that it is out of the question to say that she's playing up her womanly emotions and weaknesses for these men. We are told numerous times that the police are exceptionally nice and kind to her and gentle with her. They check out her alibi and return to the house. The police search for the weapon because, as one officer says, get the weapon and you've got the man. These officers look for a large, heavy, blunt object because Patrick's skull was smashed all to pieces, just like from a sledgehammer. I mean, this is some serious blunt force trauma, and it's because of the severity of the injury that he has sustained that the officers don't even consider Mary as a suspect once they've confirmed that she was indeed at the grocery store. And after searching and coming up with nothing, Mary offers the tired and hungry officers exactly what they've been looking for this entire time: a leg of lamb for dinner. She begs them to eat it because she's too traumatized to eat, and she must be a hospitable host. That's a woman's role, after all. Even though it's against protocol, the men drink whiskey and finish the entire lamb in the kitchen, eating up all the evidence that could later be used against her. And she giggles to herself as she hears the men burping and surmising that the murder weapon is probably right under their noses. This is such a fun, brilliant story because Mary is totally underestimated, and I think it is entirely because she's a woman. Especially at this time, women were seen as frail, submissive, dependent, weak, and less capable than men. Certainly, no woman could have been this violent, this strong, this capable to create such an injury. But when you consider that Mary swung that leg of lamb down on Patrick's skull with all her rage and frustration over being discarded by an unappreciative husband, it's really not all that implausible. There's a reason they say, hell hath no fury like a woman scorned. Mary really seems like the meek lamb whose heart is slaughtered by Patrick. But the real lamb to the slaughter is Patrick himself. What I love about this story so much is its dramatic irony, which means that we as readers know something important that some characters, like the police, do not. The dramatic irony allows us to see the way Mary uses stereotypes and expectations of women, the very same stereotypes and expectations of women that often limit them, as a way to manipulate and fool all of these smart men. She commits the crime in the home and with dinner, both of which are associated with women, warmth, comfort, and safety. And she continues to use her role as a woman to convince the police to eat the murder weapon. I think they all feel sorry for her, and they do their best to be kind to her. In fact, when one officer turns down more meat, another officer reminds him, "She wants us to finish it. She said so. Be doing her a favor." We as readers watch Mary turn weak into strong, the safe haven into a crime scene, food into a weapon, the woman into a domineering, powerful, manipulative figure who manages to outsmart all the men with her performed weakness and good manners. In the comments section below, please share with me how you feel about Mary. Were you rooting for her to get away with it? Were you surprised that she was this manipulative and capable? Did you wish she would get caught? Are you in some admiration of her in spite of it all? Do you think that Dahl is commenting on gender roles and the enforcement of them at this time? Please let me know, as one of the best things about literature is hearing other people's ideas and thoughts that can often vary from our own and lead to new meanings of a text. And be sure to check out my other videos for more literary analyses. Thank you so much for joining me, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye.